The weekend sun stretched across my yard, and I moved through the kitchen like I was running a well-rehearsed routine. Bowls of potato salad, trays of marinated veggies, pitchers of lemonade, all lined up neatly, waiting for people I hadn't seen in too long. This barbecue was supposed to patch things up, not just with friends and family, but between me and Ethan, too. We'd both been drowning in work for months, and I thought maybe, just maybe, a day of laughter and good food would remind us who we were together. From the window, I caught sight of Ethan by the grill. Sleeves rolled up, forehead already damp, coaxing flames like it was an Olympic sport. I watched him for a second, the man I'd built a whole life with, and wondered if he still saw how much I carried. The front gate clicked, and voices rose, footsteps on gravel signaling the first wave of guests. I smooth my apron, painted on that smile, the one that says, "We're fine, nothing's wrong here." And then she showed up. Lauren, Ethan's ex. She walked in like she'd been invited to her own coronation, perfume cutting straight through the smoky air. My chest tightened, sharp and small, but I forced my smile wider. This is about family, I told myself, not about her. Still, a tiny sting curled under my skin, a warning I couldn't quite shake. Lauren found me almost immediately, all chirpy and bright. "This space is so you, Sid. Love the curtains. Where did you get them?" Her eyes darted around the room, soaking it in like she owned the right to judge. I kept my smile steady and answered, "Thanks. I made most of it myself." She raised one eyebrow and delivered her dagger with a sugar-coated grin. Oh, how quaint. The word lodged in my chest like a splinter. Quaint? Really? I watched her drift from group to group, her laughter just a shade too loud, her words laced with that sly venom only I seemed to catch. I caught snippets, jokes about the seasoning, a snide remark about the humble little space we called home. People chuckled nervously, some even nodded along. I busied myself refilling glasses, pretending I didn't hear, but each word stacked on top of the last until my smile started to ache. Ethan, of course, thought it was funny. I saw him laugh, brushing it off like Lauren was just being Lauren. My chest tightened. When the sting finally grew too sharp to swallow, I tugged at his sleeve and pulled him aside, away from the noise and chatter. My voice came low, sharp with hurt. "She's insulting the food I made. I want her out." Ethan leaned in, his whisper clipped and patronizing. "Relax, Sid. She's just trying to get a reaction. Don't start anything." His words pressed down on me heavier than Lauren's digs ever could. My pulse thudded in my ears. I wanted to shake him, to make him see, but instead I kept my voice tight. "She's not just joking, Ethan. She's cutting me down in my own home." He sighed, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "You're making a thing out of nothing, as usual. It's fine. Stop being so dramatic." The dismissal was sharp, final, and in that moment, something inside me shifted. I felt the warmth drain from my face, leaving only a cold, steady calm. His words weren't just careless. They were proof. Proof that he was willing to laugh with her, even at my expense. I straightened my back and looked him square in the eye, voice low enough only for him. "Then you'll see the storm I'm going to make." He blinked, maybe thinking I was bluffing, but I wasn't. No one had noticed yet, but the ground beneath this barbecue was already changing, and deep inside, I knew this wasn't about a few nasty comments. It was about respect, and whether I still had any in this marriage. The party kept rolling, music low, glasses clinking, but Lauren's voice carried like a mosquito in my ear. Each comment she dropped was sharper than the last. She teased my career with a smirk, calling it cute that I kept the house running. She joked about my small ambitions, and her words hit harder because I could see the reactions, the awkward glances, the forced chuckles, the shifting feet of people who didn't want to get caught in the crossfire. I tried to keep my composure, smiling tightly, passing plates, but my stomach churned. I thought maybe if I spoke to her directly it would stop, so I pulled her aside, out of earshot. My voice was calm even. "Lauren, if you have a problem, say it to me. Don't insult me in front of my friends." Her lips curled into that venomous smile, like she'd been waiting for this moment. "Oh, I didn't know the hostess couldn't take a compliment. Don't be so sensitive." I felt my jaw tighten, but I didn't give her the satisfaction of breaking. I smiled, thin, deliberate. "I'm not sensitive. I just expect basic respect." For a moment, her smile faltered, and I thought maybe I'd punctured her little performance. But when we stepped back inside, I realized the real sting hadn't even landed yet. Ethan was about to make sure of that. We hadn't even crossed the threshold back into the living room before Ethan's voice cut through the chatter. He spoke just loud enough for everyone to hear, casual, like he was telling a harmless joke. "Sydney always does that. Gets worked up over nothing. We all love her, but she's a little dramatic." The words floated in the air, heavy and humiliating, and I felt every pair of eyes flick toward me. Some guests laughed softly, others exchanged quick looks, but the message was clear. I was the punchline. Heat rushed up my neck, burning behind my ears. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to shatter the smugness in both their faces, but I didn't. Instead, I stood there with my glass of lemonade, hands steady, smile frozen. Inside, though, something was breaking. It wasn't just Lauren anymore. It was Ethan. He wasn't defending me. He wasn't protecting me. He was performing at my expense. That was the moment clarity settled over me like ice water. My husband wasn't a bystander. He was complicit. He let her needle me, encouraged it even, and when the chance came, he piled on. I realized, with a stillness that scared even me, that this marriage wasn't cracked. It was rotting. And if he thought I'd just swallow it, he was about to learn who he was really married to. I stood there, the room buzzing with nervous laughter, and I swear I could hear my own heartbeat louder than the music. I caught glimpses of guests whispering, their eyes darting between me and Ethan like they were watching a slow-motion car wreck. Some shifted uncomfortably, others smirked, but not one person stepped in. That silence told me everything. If I wanted respect, I'd have to claim it myself. Ethan, oblivious to the damage he'd just done, clinked his beer bottle against a friend's glass, grinning like nothing had happened. Lauren leaned back in her chair, clearly satisfied with the chaos she'd stirred. My hands curled into fists at my sides, not out of rage, but out of resolve. I realized in that instant that letting this slide would define me. Small, fragile, dramatic. And that wasn't who I was, not anymore. I exhaled slowly, tasting the bitterness of betrayal on my tongue, and forced a calm smile back onto my face. If they thought I was going to explode and make a scene, they were wrong. No, I'd do the opposite. I'd play the gracious hostess. I'd let them think I was backing down. But in my mind, the decision was already made. They'd asked for a storm, and I was going to deliver one. Just not tonight. When the last guest finally drifted out and the yard fell silent, I didn't collapse in tears or throw dishes against the wall like some might expect. I just stood in my kitchen, staring at the empty bowls and half-drained glasses, letting the hum of the refrigerator fill the silence Ethan had left when he stumbled off to bed. My heart was heavy, yes, but it wasn't broken. It was sharpening, like steel against stone. I knew if I exploded tonight, I'd only prove them right. The dramatic wife, too fragile to handle a few jokes. No, my revenge couldn't be loud. It had to be deliberate, measured, undeniable. So I started planning. By the next morning, I was already texting a few close friends, Claire, Erin, even my mom, inviting them to a little thank you brunch on Sunday. Same group, same faces. Only this time, the spotlight would be mine. As the hours passed, I opened Ethan's group chats, the ones he thought I never looked at. And there it was, proof. Jokes about letting Lauren needle Sydney for sport. A text from Lauren herself. "She's so fragile, funny to wind her up." My chest tightened, but not from pain, from validation. They thought they could laugh at me in the dark. Well, I was about to bring their little game into the light. I sat at the dining table with my laptop open, the glow of the screen washing over me in the dim light. Piece by piece, I gathered what I needed. Screenshots of Ethan's smug little messages, Lauren's cruel text. Then I added the audio clip I'd caught in the kitchen, his voice dismissing me, calling me dramatic. I played it back once, just to hear it, and the sound made my stomach knot. But instead of crumbling, I pressed save. Proof doesn't lie. Next, I filmed myself. Just a short video, no makeup, no pretense. My voice was calm, steady, the kind of tone that leaves no room for argument. It wasn't a meltdown, it was a record, a statement. I knew exactly when and how I'd use it. Alongside it, I built a small slideshow on my tablet. Lauren's barbs, Ethan's chuckles, every little cut they thought would fade into the air. I stitched it all together like a quilt of betrayal. As I worked, I felt a strange calm wash over me. Not peace, exactly, but control. For the first time in months, maybe years, I wasn't reacting. I was preparing. Every click of the mouse, every screenshot saved was another stitch in the net I was weaving. And when it tightened, they wouldn't see it coming. They'd only feel it when it snapped shut. By Saturday night, I had everything lined up. My phone buzzed with Claire's voice on the other end, worried but loyal. "Are you sure you want to do this at a brunch?" she asked softly. I could picture her frowning, twisting the phone cord like she used to when we were kids. I answered without hesitation, steady as steel. "Yes, this is public. It needs to be public. Let them see who made the jokes and who swallowed them." There was a pause, then her sigh. "Okay, I'll be there with Aaron and Mom. We'll listen." Her words were like a hand on my shoulder, not pushing, not pulling, just steadying me. I thanked her, then glanced at the folders on my screen. My arsenal wasn't made of bullets or blades. It was truth, sharpened and waiting. That felt stronger than any outburst I could have mustered. When I finally closed the laptop, the house was quiet. Ethan slept upstairs, blissfully unaware, probably dreaming of how clever he was for brushing me off. I tucked the tablet into my bag and stood by the window, staring at the dark yard that only hours ago had been filled with laughter. Tomorrow, I promised myself, the storm would begin. And this time, it wouldn't just rattle the windows, it would tear the roof right off. Sunday morning arrived bright and deceptively calm, the kind of day that begged for coffee on the porch and easy smiles. I brewed the pot anyway, poured a mug, and carried it to the table where fresh flowers sat in a vase. Brunch prep looked innocent from the outside, muffins cooling, eggs ready to scramble, fruit sliced just so. But underneath that calm surface, I was steadying myself for battle. This wasn't brunch, it was a reckoning. By noon, the house was full again. Familiar faces, the same neighbors, friends, and family who'd been at the barbecue. They laughed, they chatted, they filled plates. Ethan swaggered in with Lauren by his side, both wearing smug little half-smiles like they'd already won something. I greeted them with warmth, not because I felt it, but because control is the sweetest weapon. No one suspected a thing. Not yet. When dessert time rolled around, I stood and tapped my glass lightly, the sound crisp against the hum of conversation. "Thank you all for coming," I began, voice calm and measured. Chairs shifted, forks clinked down. Ethan rolled his eyes like he expected another sentimental toast. Lauren leaned back, ready to watch me stumble. My pulse quickened, but my voice stayed even. I wanted this to be simple, but after last weekend, I realized I owe everyone the truth. I clicked the tablet, and the first screenshot lit up the screen behind me. Gasps rippled through the room as Ethan's group chat appeared, his words right there in black and white. "Let Lauren needle Sydney for sport." A nervous shuffle spread across the table, forks frozen midair. Then came Lauren's text. "She's so fragile. Funny to wind her up." Her face drained of color as whispers cracked the silence. I let the tension breathe before speaking again. Here's Ethan, joking with his friends about winding me up. And here's Lauren admitting she enjoys it. That wasn't teasing. That was cruelty. And it was planned. My voice was steady, not shrill, every word chosen with precision. Then I tapped once more, and the audio clip played, Ethan's voice dismissing me, clear as day. "You're dramatic." The sound filled the room, undeniable. Ethan shot up from his chair, face red, his voice rising. "Sydney, you can't just show private messages." His anger cracked through the tension, but I met his outburst with calm. "Private, yes. until you used them to humiliate me publicly. I didn't need to shout. The truth was louder than anything he could muster. All around us, eyes were shifting. Some widened in shock, others narrowed in judgment. The tide was turning. Lauren's lips parted, searching for words, but nothing came out. Her smugness had drained away, leaving only a pale mask of panic. Guests who had once laughed nervously at her digs now sat stiff, embarrassed, as if realizing they'd played along with something rotten. A mutual friend finally broke the silence, voice firm. "Ethan, is this true? Because it sounds awful." Ethan's hands fluttered uselessly in the air. "It was a joke. It wasn't serious," he stammered, but his words rang hollow, bouncing off the walls with no weight. I leaned forward, my voice cutting through his excuses like a blade. "It was serious to me. You made it clear where you stand." His anger shrank in the shadow of that calm truth. He wasn't a protector, he was an accomplice, and everyone saw it now. The room had flipped. Where I once stood small and cornered, I now stood anchored, while Ethan and Lauren scrambled in the wreckage of their own arrogance. I didn't need to gloat. I didn't need to scream. I just let the silence stretch, the evidence speak, and their own shame do the rest. And as I scanned the faces around me, I knew this storm had only just begun to rain down on them. The fallout came quickly, like ripples spreading across still water. By Monday, I could feel the shift. Invitations that used to include both of us suddenly arrived addressed only to me. Friends who had laughed along at Lauren's jokes now sent quiet texts. "I'm sorry, I should have said something." Neighbors, usually polite to a fault, stopped pretending around Ethan. And Lauren? She was greeted with tight smiles and cold silences, her reputation unraveling as neatly as the ribbon on a gift no one wanted. Ethan, on the other hand, couldn't hide from it. His phone buzzed less, his calendar looked emptier. Every awkward pause when someone mentioned the barbecue was another nail in the coffin he'd built with his own hands. He tried to act unfazed at first, brushing it off like gossip, but I could see the way his shoulders sagged, the way he avoided eye contact with people who used to admire him. My silence toward him at home only made the walls close in tighter. One night, he cornered me in the kitchen, his voice breaking under the weight of everything he'd lost. "Sydney, please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Can't we fix this?" His plea echoed in the quiet room, and for a moment, I studied his face. Not with love, but with the kind of distance you feel when you realize you've been looking at a stranger all along. I set the dish towel down and looked at him, my voice calm, almost gentle. "You let a stranger make jokes about me. You laughed with her. You didn't defend me. That choice was yours." He swallowed hard, eyes wet, fumbling like a man who suddenly realizes the ground beneath him is gone. "I was trying to be funny," he whispered, desperate. "I didn't think—" But the excuses only hollowed out the space between us. I gave him a cool smile, one that carried no warmth. "And I was trying to be married, but I won't stay where I'm not respected." The silence that followed was heavy, thick with truth he couldn't argue against. He lowered his gaze, shoulders sagging, and for the first time, I saw him not as my partner, but as a man diminished by his own choices. My pity didn't stretch far enough to reach him. The next days were quieter, clearer. I didn't slam doors or scream ultimatums. Instead, I set boundaries, sharp, unshakable lines he'd never crossed before. Counseling only if he proved real contrition, space if he didn't. Friends reached out, some ashamed they'd laughed, others offering comfort with apologies that felt sincere. I accepted the ones that mattered. My circle was smaller now, but stronger. And I could finally breathe in a way I hadn't in years. One morning, I stood by the window, a new pair of curtains in my hands, soft fabric I'd picked out myself, no input, no second guessing. As I hung them, sunlight spilled through, warm and forgiving, catching my reflection in the glass. I smiled, not because everything was perfect, but because I finally saw myself clearly again. Not small, not fragile, just me, steady, resilient, and unafraid. Ethan shuffled past the doorway, silent, his presence dimmer now, almost like a ghost in the home we once shared. He knew the balance had shifted. I wasn't begging for his validation anymore, and that realization seemed to weigh heavier on him than any argument could. My revenge wasn't fire and chaos. It was consequence. It was truth. And it was me standing tall in the wreckage he helped create. I whispered it softly to myself as I smoothed the last fold of fabric. You wanted me small. You won't find me there. That was the storm you asked for, and now I'm the one who decides where the sky clears. And in that quiet, with the sunlight warming my face, I knew the storm was over, at least for me. For Ethan, though, it was only just beginning.